On December 3rd, 2012, Clarence House announced that William and Catherine, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, were expecting their first child. The Duke is the elder son of Charles, Prince of Wales, who is the eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II, meaning that their child would be third in line of succession to the British throne. When the baby was born on July 22nd, 2013, word spread quickly across the Commonwealth and beyond. Prince George was widely hailed as a future king. There were 21 gun salutes in the capitals of Bermuda, the UK, New Zealand, and Canada, and bells rang out at Westminster Abbey and many other churches. This child was born into a life of wealth and privilege, steeped in tradition and adored by many. He will receive the finest education, travel the world, and be known as His Royal Highness Prince George of Cambridge until or unless he becomes king. Jesus of Nazareth also descended from royal blood. Depending on whether you read the Gospel of Luke or Matthew or other sources, Jesus was 42 generations removed from King David. Even so, the Jews widely anticipated a royal birth and longed for a king to free them from the oppressive rule of the Romans. Jesus' humble birth in a stable was announced by angels who were messengers of God, as there was no Facebook or Twitter at the time. We don't know how many people received the message because we are only told about the shepherds and the wise men. After getting some awesome gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, Jesus and his family returned to normal life. Jesus probably learned carpentry at his father's side and worshiped with him at the temple. We know little about his life until he became an itinerant preacher at the age of 30. But we do know that it wasn't the charmed life of a future king. Kings have wealth and power, a kingdom and an army to defend it. Jesus had few possessions, little political power, and loyal followers, not royal subjects. But he did talk about a kingdom. Once, on being asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God would come, Jesus replied, "The coming of the kingdom of God is not something that can be observed, nor will people say, 'Here it is,' or 'There it is,' because the kingdom of God is in your midst." Jesus was the embodiment of the kingdom of God. Every loving word, every act of healing and compassion was inspired by God. To this day, Christ reigns over a kingdom ruled by the power of love and the wealth of blessings. As many of you will know, last summer, Ian and I attended the Wild Goose Festival in North Carolina, which is a gathering of progressive Christians. One of the speakers there was Shane Claiborne, an American author, preacher, and peace activist. Shane is a member of a movement called the Red Letter Christians, which refers to the fact that in many Bibles, the words of Jesus are printed in red. They are dedicated to living out Jesus' values of love and mercy, especially the words he used in the Sermon on the Mount. In his book, The Irresistible Revolution, Shane talks about being a student at a Christian college in Illinois and wanting to find the real Christians who were really living out Christ's, the call of discipleship to bring about the kingdom of God. His quest led him to meet Mother Teresa and spend a summer in Calcutta with the Missionaries of Charity, living in a hostel and working in a home for the dying and destitute, and ministering to people with leprosy. At the end of that summer, Shane says, "The lepers had shown me a glimpse of what God might have had in mind for the world. I remember praying in the leper colony each morning, 'Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.' And perhaps for the first time, those were no longer empty words that I hoped would come true someday. They became words we are not only to expect to come true, but also to enact." Such an idea was foreign to me in the materialism of my land, but it was so close to what I saw in the early church, a people on the margins giving birth to another way of living, a new community marked by interdependence and sacrificial love. When he returned to the USA, Shane Claiborne felt called to a ministry of living out Jesus' radical countercultural teachings by living and working in the inner city of Philadelphia. Shane and 5 friends moved to a little row house in the ghetto in January 1997 and started a community called The Simple Way, which still exists today. Their vision was to love God, love people, and follow Jesus. They shared food and clothing with folks who needed it, helped kids with their homework in their living room, and planted gardens in abandoned lots. They renovated abandoned houses to make them livable and affordable. Their ministry has changed over the years, and there are now more community resources, but they still live and work in inner city Philadelphia. Shane says he believes in miracles and in the power of kindness to change people's hearts and minds. At Wild Goose, he told us a story that resonated with me because of the rising tide of gun violence we hear about on the nightly news. In the city of Philadelphia, there is a shooting on average every 6 hours. Shane and his followers decided to hold a daily peaceful protest outside one of the gun shops in a neighborhood where there had been many shootings. They held signs calling for a ban on semi-automatic weapons, prayed, and sang hymns. They were neither obnoxious nor confrontational. They would greet the owner of the store every day and let him know that they were praying for him. Now, it happened after a few weeks that the gun store owner suffered a heart attack and ended up in hospital. Shane and his congregation, including the mother of a victim of gun violence, took turns visiting him and praying for him until he recovered. When he came out of hospital, he decided to close down the gun shop. One changed heart and one small step towards building the kingdom. In the reading from John's Gospel, Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus says, "My kingdom is not from this world." And Pilate asks again, "So you are a king?" But Jesus replies, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth." I believe that the kingdom of God is not a destination, but a process, and we are all co-creators of the kingdom with God. You don't have to visit a leper colony outside of Calcutta or move to a slum in the inner city to be a kingdom seeker or a kingdom builder. The kingdom of God is like Jeff Cohen, the Jewish doctor who treated the gunman who had just killed 11 people in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Dr. Cohen said, "My job is not to judge him. My job is to care for him." The kingdom of God is like the National Council of Muslims, who organized Muslims and other people of faith to surround synagogues in Toronto with rings of peace, while people worshiped inside, as a show of solidarity with the victims of the shooting at Tree of Life. The kingdom of God is like a farmer in Manotick who sent 2,000 pounds of potatoes to Iqaluit after a fire burned down the main grocery store there. There are glimpses of the kingdom all around us. It is there when we welcome refugees, contribute to Christmas hampers, help out at the mission, or pray with the grieving family. As we go forth in the journey of life, may we be kingdom seekers and kingdom builders who make this world a better place. May it be so. Amen.